Welcome to the Sports Dad Hub podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Dewey, a proud sports dad of 4. Each week, I'm going to bring you a valuable guest or message that will help you fuel your kids' passion for sports without burning them out. The years of youth sports fly by, and this podcast will help you make the most of them. You'll learn things like how to use youth sports to teach your kids awesome life lessons, how to be a great sports parent, how to help your kids reach the highest levels that they want to reach, how to avoid getting sucked into the trap of being an overbearing sports parent, and more. Thanks for spending some time with me. Let's kick off today's episode. Hey, welcome to the Sports Dad Hub podcast. Man, it feels good to say those words. I've been waiting to say that for at least 3 years. So back in 2011, I started a website called sportsdadhub.com. And if you've ever been a visitor or a reader or a commenter of the site or the Facebook group, first of all, thank you so much, but I just want to take you back real quick if you're unfamiliar with Sports Dad Hub. At the time, I was a sports dad of 3, and I was just looking for some advice and guidance to help me make some decisions regarding my boys. And when I couldn't find any websites or community online that I related with, I just decided to start my own. And I figured there had to be other sports dads like me who were looking for some guidance. So I started sportsdadhub.com to simply start sharing my own experiences, perspectives, and lessons that I was learning as a sports dad of 3 boys. And around that time, I noticed that the term sports parent was getting instead of meaning that you were a supportive parent of kids who love sports, the term sports parent was more of a negative, connotation, and it more meant like that you were just an obsessive control freak who yelled and screamed like a maniac and sometimes fought at your kids' sporting events. I'm sure you've probably seen some of the videos that were going around on social media. I know one that comes to mind is the hockey dad who smacks the glass at his kid's hockey game and it breaks the glass, and other ones of just parents fighting on the sidelines, just ridiculous stuff like that. So I really wanted to build something that represented being a sports parent in a positive. I'm proud to say that I think I've done that over the past few years. When I launched Sports Dad Hub, the tagline was, "Fuel your kids' passion for sports without burning them out." And that tagline has never changed. Through the years, I've developed a perspective on youth sports that I believe that can benefit a lot of sports parents, especially sports parents who are just starting their journey into this amazing experience of being a sports parent. I hope that I can serve as a guide to other sports parents who are just maybe a few steps or a few years behind me in this journey. So, why this podcast and why now? Well, it's like I said in the opening of this episode, I've been wanting to start a podcast for at least 3 years. I love podcasts and audiobooks. I listen to way more podcasts than I read blogs or articles. Podcasts just fit perfectly within the busy sports parent lifestyle. I mean, we're always on the go, we're always in the car, so a podcast is just the ideal way for us to consume content. It's way more efficient than reading. As you're listening to this right now, you're probably either working out, mowing the yard, folding laundry, doing something like that, or most likely you're probably driving one of your kids to a practice or a game. The only reason that I put off launching this podcast for so long is quite honestly just fear. I was afraid of what other people would think or say. I was afraid of sounding dumb. I hate the sound of my own voice. But as time went on, the voice inside my head just grew stronger and louder. The voice could launch a podcast that I could reach and help more and more sports parents. And there were just more and more signs lately within the last year or so, and I just decided that, now is the time. Why not now? I've got 10 years of valuable on-the-job training and experience as a sports parent that I can share with the world. If you subscribe to the Sports Dad Hub podcast, here are a few of the different things and topics that we're going to be diving into. We're going to talk about how to fuel your kids' passion for sports without burning them out, how to keep youth sports in perspective and avoid getting sucked into the hyper-competitive atmosphere. We're going to have interviews with sports parents who have successfully raised professional and or Division I athletes. We're going to have awesome interviews with industry experts on mental toughness, concussion safety, sports medicine, physical training, diet, nutrition, and more. We're going to have question and answer sessions where you get to ask questions of our industry experts that we bring on the podcast. We're going to get into exploring why the youth sports culture encourages year-round sports specialization at such young ages. We're also going to have some great discussions with coaches that are going to provide you with some actionable information that's going to help your kid become better at their sport. So if any of those topics interest you, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or whatever podcast app you're using right now. Look, I am far from being the perfect sports parent, and to be 100% transparent with you, the Sports Dad Hub blog and this podcast are just as much about helping me as it is about helping you. And just like you and me, this podcast is going to be a constant work in progress. It's always going to be changing based on the feedback that listeners like you give me. I want this to be as valuable and as entertaining as possible, so I'll always be making changes and trying to improve. I can't thank you enough for tuning into this first episode. I hope that this has been a good summary of what I'm looking to create. One more thing. On every podcast that I listen to, the host always talks about how bad they were back when they got started. So I just want to acknowledge one thing real quick. I know that I suck right now. But I also want to assure you that I will get better. When I was a youth, high school, and collegiate athlete, I was never the most talented kid on the team, ever. But I always worked my butt off. I'm proud to say that I've won a few Most Improved Player awards in my day. And my basketball coaches could always count on me to dive on the floor for that loose ball or step up and take a charge. I'm going to attack this podcast with the same style of hustle and work ethic. I'll never be the best podcaster, but I'll always be shooting to be the most improved podcaster. I hope that you'll come back and join me on future episodes and let me know how I'm doing. So here's to the first of many episodes that will help us both be the best sports parents that we can be. Thanks for listening. Hey, thanks for listening to the Sports Dad Hub podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, do me a huge favor and leave me a rating and review on iTunes or whatever podcast app that you use. That's how other sports will be able to find out about us. Thanks so much.